No. I can still see streaks. Do it again, and this time, actually put some effort into it. The voice sliced through the afternoon quiet of the Palo Alto mansion like a blade, stopping Francis cold in the service entrance. He'd just flown 14 hours from Tokyo, the Cartier box still heavy in his suit pocket, the vintage necklace Camille had been obsessing over for months. He'd closed the deal 3 days early just to surprise her. But the sharp edge in her tone made his stomach drop. Honestly, I don't understand why this is so difficult, Camille continued, her heels clicking against marble. My mother's staff could clean these floors properly. Maybe you're just not capable of this kind of work. Francis moved silently across the travertin, his pulse accelerating with each step. Through the archway to the great room, he saw her, Camille in her cream Valentino suit, arms crossed, standing over a woman in a dove-gray uniform who knelt on the floor, scrubbing in methodical circles. The woman's shoulders were hunched, her movements careful, almost familiar. Something in the way she paused, the slight tilt of her head, made Francis's throat constrict. Well, Camille's voice dripped with impatience. Are you even listening? The woman's hand stilled on the marble. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the cleaning bucket. Then she turned. Francis's world fractured. Beatrice, his mother. 8 months ago, she'd been at the Tech Innovation Gala in the Dior gown he'd bought her, laughing with venture capitalists and celebrating his company's Series C funding. Now she wore a maid's uniform in his house, taking orders from his fiancée. Their eyes locked. Not shame in her expression, warning. A silent, desperate plea. Francis. Camille's voice transformed into honey-sweet delight. Darling, you're home early. Francis forced his face into a smile, while his mind screamed questions he couldn't ask. His mother gave the smallest shake of her head. Don't react. Don't say anything. But what Francis didn't know was that this shocking discovery was only the beginning. The truth buried beneath this moment would unravel everything he thought he knew about the woman he planned to marry. To understand how Francis walked into this nightmare, we have to go back 8 months earlier, to the night his perfect life began its catastrophic unraveling. Before we get into that, here's a special shout-out to Beatrice Morrison watching from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you for being one of our amazing supporters and engaging with the channel. A character in the story was named in your honor. If you'd also like to get a shout-out in the next video, please like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, and you'll be given a shout-out. Thank you. Now let's get into the story. 8 months before Francis Malvoy walked into his mansion to find his mother on her knees, he was standing in Evie, a restaurant in downtown Palo Alto, champagne glass raised, surrounded by investors who'd just made him very, very rich. To secure Vault, his CFO Jordan Bennett announced, grinning. Series C funding, $85 million. The private dining room erupted in cheers. Francis's encryption software company had just become Silicon Valley's newest success story, and the celebration reflected it. Venture capitalists mingled with tech journalists, everyone eager to be part of the next big thing. Francis, darling, you must be thrilled. His mother Beatrice appeared at his elbow, elegant in navy silk, her eyes bright with pride. Your father would have been so proud. I wish he could have seen this, Francis said, squeezing her hand. None of this happens without you, Mom. Those years you worked 2 jobs, so I could finish at MIT. Stop. Beatrice's voice was firm but warm. You earned every bit of this. I just gave you the opportunity. You built something remarkable. She'd done more than that. After Francis's father died when he was 16, Beatrice had sold her late husband's modest tech startup, invested the proceeds carefully, and worked relentlessly to fund Francis's education. She'd built her own success too, a venture capital consulting firm that had made her respected in the same circles, now celebrating her son. Francis Malvoy? He turned to find a woman in a black cocktail dress, her dark hair swept into an effortless chignon. She was striking, the kind of elegant that suggested European finishing schools and old money. Camille Laurent, she said, extending her hand. Her accent held the faintest trace of French. I work with Bancroft and Sterling. We were considering an investment position, but it seems we were too slow. Never too late for strategic partnerships, Francis replied, smiling. That was how it started. A conversation about encryption protocols that evolved into dinner the following week at Manresa, then a weekend in Napa, then Sunday mornings at the Los Altos Farmers Market. Camille fit seamlessly into his world. She knew the right people, understood tech culture, and moved through Silicon Valley society with practiced grace. 3 months later, Francis brought her to meet his mother at Beatrice's San Francisco townhouse. "It's wonderful to finally meet you, Mrs. Malvoy," Camille said, her smile warm. "Francis talks about you constantly. Please, call me Beatrice." His mother's embrace was genuine, but Francis caught something in her eyes. A hesitation. Later, as Camille excused herself to take a call, Beatrice pulled Francis aside in the kitchen. "She's lovely," Beatrice said carefully. "Very polished." "But," Francis prompted. "No but. Just take your time, sweetheart. You've known her 3 months. Mom, not everyone takes 5 years to commit like you and Dad did." Beatrice smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're right. I'm probably being overprotective. Ignore me." Francis did. 6 months into the relationship, he drove Camille to Big Sur, to the overlook where the Pacific crashed against ancient cliffs. He'd had the ring designed by a jeweler in San Francisco, a custom piece featuring a rare blue diamond. "Camille Laurent," he said, dropping to one knee as the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," she laughed, pulling him up, her eyes bright with tears. "Yes, yes, yes." The engagement announcement made the society pages. Camille threw herself into wedding planning with impressive efficiency, booking the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay for the following spring, hiring the Bay Area's most sought-after event planner. But 3 weeks before Francis was scheduled to leave for his Asia expansion, establishing secure vault offices in Tokyo, Singapore, and Hong Kong, his mother called. "Can we have lunch?" Beatrice asked. "Just the two of us." They met at Bistro Vita in Menlo Park, a quiet spot they'd frequented for years. Beatrice ordered her usual Niçoise salad but barely touched it. "What's wrong?" Francis asked. "Nothing's wrong exactly. She paused, seeming to gather her thoughts. "I've been forgetting little things lately. Where I put my keys, appointments I've scheduled. It's probably nothing, just getting older, but... Have you seen a doctor? I have an appointment next month. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Normal aging. But I wanted you to know, in case." She trailed off. Francis reached across the table. "Mom, you're 62, not 90. But I'm glad you're getting it checked out. Do you want me to come to the appointment? You'll be in Tokyo by then. It's fine, really." That evening, over dinner at their Palo Alto home, Francis mentioned it to Camille. "Oh, the poor thing," Camille said immediately, her face full of concern. "Francis, memory issues at her age can be serious. Has she seen a specialist?" "She has a regular appointment scheduled. A regular doctor isn't enough. She needs a neurologist, someone who specializes in cognitive health." Camille pulled out her phone. "My mother had a friend who went through something similar. Let me make some calls. I know people at Stanford Medical Center." "That's really thoughtful, Camille. Beatrice is going to be my mother-in-law. Of course I want to help." She squeezed his hand. "Why don't I reach out to her directly? Offer to accompany her to appointments while you're away? That way someone's with her, taking notes, asking the right questions." Francis felt a wave of gratitude. "You do that. Family takes care of family," Camille said softly. 2 weeks later, Francis stood in the San Francisco International Airport departure terminal, his carry-on packed for 6 months abroad. His phone buzzed with messages. From Beatrice, "Safe travels, sweetheart. Make us proud. Love you more than words." From Camille, "Already missing you. Don't worry about anything here. I'll take good care of your mom. Focus on building your empire. Love you." Francis boarded the flight to Tokyo, settling into his first-class seat with a satisfied smile. His company was expanding internationally. He was engaged to an incredible woman who genuinely cared about his mother, and life had never looked better. He had no idea he was leaving his mother alone with the woman who would systematically destroy her. Have you ever ignored a gut feeling about someone close to you? What happened? Share your story in the comments below. 3 days after Francis's flight to Tokyo, Camille called Beatrice. "I was thinking we should have lunch," Camille said, her voice warm. "Just us girls. We can discuss wedding plans, and I'd love to hear more about Francis as a boy. I'm sure you have stories he'd be embarrassed for me to know." Beatrice laughed. "Oh, I have plenty of those." "That sounds lovely." They met at Sundance Steakhouse in Palo Alto, a dimly lit establishment known for its privacy. Camille had reserved a corner booth, away from other diners. I'm so glad we're doing this, Camille said after they'd ordered. I want us to be close, Beatrice. Family is everything to me. Francis is lucky to have you. Beatrice smiled. How are you handling him being gone for so long? It's hard, but I understand. Building a company requires sacrifice. Camille paused, her expression shifting to something more serious. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Francis. I'm concerned about him. Beatrice's smile faded. Concerned? What do you mean? Before he left, he seemed stressed. More than usual. He was taking calls at odd hours, disappearing into his office for entire evenings. And a few times, I heard him on the phone talking about financial projections that sounded. She stopped herself. I'm probably overreacting. Camille, what did you hear? Camille reached into her handbag and pulled out a manila folder. I feel terrible showing you this. But you're his mother. You have a right to know. She slid several documents across the table. Beatrice picked them up with trembling hands. Bank statements. Financial reports. All bearing Secure Vault's letterhead. The numbers made her stomach drop. Accounts showing massive withdrawals, projections indicating severe losses, internal memos discussing emergency funding gaps. Where did you get these? Beatrice whispered. Francis left them in his office. I wasn't snooping, I was looking for our insurance documents, and I found these in a folder marked private, do not discuss. Camille's eyes filled with tears. Beatrice, I think the Series C funding covered up problems that are much worse than anyone knows. I think Francis is drowning, and he's too proud to tell anyone. That can't be right. The investors, they did their due diligence. Sometimes brilliant people make catastrophic mistakes. The expansion into Asia, what if it's not an opportunity? What if he's running from problems here? Camille reached across the table, gripping Beatrice's hand. I love your son, but I'm terrified he's in over his head and won't admit it until it's too late. Beatrice stared at the documents, her mind racing. The numbers looked official, the letterhead perfect. I need to call him. He'll deny everything. Men like Francis, they protect the people they love by hiding the truth until they can fix it. Camille's voice dropped lower. My father was the same way. He lost everything before my mother found out. By then, it was too late to save anything. The waiter arrived with their meals, but neither woman touched the food. What do I do? Beatrice asked. For now, nothing. Let me do some quiet investigating. I have friends in finance who can look into this discreetly. But Beatrice, Camille's expression was grave. If this is as bad as I think it is, Francis might need help. Real help. The kind that requires family sacrifice. 2 weeks later, Beatrice sat in Dr. Michael Harrison's office at a clinic in Mountain View. Camille had recommended him, said he was the best cognitive specialist in the Bay Area. Dr. Harrison reviewed Beatrice's test results with a serious expression. Mrs. Malvoy, I'm going to be direct with you. Your memory issues are more significant than normal aging. The tests show markers consistent with early-stage cognitive decline. Beatrice felt the room tilt. How early? It's progressing. Not rapidly, but steadily. Over the next year or two, you'll likely experience increased confusion, difficulty with complex tasks, problems with financial management. He leaned forward. Do you live alone? Yes, but my son. I'd recommend having someone check on you regularly. These conditions can make people vulnerable to poor decisions, financial mistakes. Camille, who'd accompanied Beatrice to the appointment, squeezed her hand. I'll make sure she's not alone, she said. In the parking lot afterward, Beatrice sat in Camille's Mercedes, staring at nothing. I can't tell Francis, she whispered. Not now? Not with everything else. Everything else? Camille asked carefully. He has enough to worry about. Camille was quiet for a long moment. Then, Beatrice, there's something you should know. Those financial documents I showed you? I had a friend analyze them. It's worse than we thought. Francis is personally liable for millions in company debts. If Secure Vault fails, he doesn't just lose the business, he loses everything. No, that can't be. He's probably in Tokyo right now trying to secure emergency funding. But if he can't, Camille's voice broke. I'm so sorry. I know this is overwhelming, especially with your diagnosis. Beatrice pressed her hands to her face. Her son was in trouble. She was losing her ability to think clearly. Everything was falling apart. What can I do? She asked. I have to help him. Camille hesitated, as if considering whether to speak. You have assets. The townhouse in San Francisco, your investment portfolio. If you liquidated them quietly, You could create a financial cushion for Francis. Something to catch him if everything collapses. Liquidate my house. Just temporarily. Until Francis gets back on his feet. He'd never ask you to do this, Beatrice. But sometimes mothers have to make hard choices to protect their children. Over the next month, Beatrice sold her San Francisco townhouse. She liquidated her investment accounts. She transferred everything, every dollar she'd spent 30 years building, into accounts Camille had set up to protect Francis's privacy. $3,200,000. When the last transfer cleared, Camille brought Beatrice to a lawyer's office to sign the final documents. There's one more thing, Camille said gently, as Beatrice's hand trembled over the signature line. With your diagnosis and Francis being gone for months, I think you should consider staying close by. Where I can help you, keep an eye on things. Stay where? With us. In the guest quarters at the Palo Alto house. Just temporarily. Camille's smile was kind. And Beatrice, this might sound strange, but hear me out. Francis is so proud. If he comes home and finds out you sacrificed everything for him, it'll destroy him. What if we framed it differently? You're helping with household management while he's away, staying in staff quarters to be discreet. And when he returns strong and successful, we'll tell him the truth together. Beatrice stared at the pen in her hand, at her signature half-finished on the property transfer document. It's just for a few months, Camille assured her. Until Francis is back and stable. Then everything goes back to normal. I promise. Beatrice signed her name, believing she was saving her son from financial ruin. She had no idea she'd just signed away everything she owned to the woman who was destroying them both. If you're finding this story eye-opening, subscribe so you never miss stories that matter. Your support means everything to creators like us who bring you real, compelling content, and hitting that subscribe button takes 1 second but means the world. Francis stood frozen in his own foyer, the Cartier box suddenly feeling like a lead weight in his pocket. His mother, Beatrice Malvoy, the woman who'd raised him alone, who'd sacrificed everything for his education, who'd built her own successful consulting firm, was on her knees in a maid's uniform, scrubbing his floors while his fiancée stood over her issuing orders. Darling, you're home early. Camille glided toward him, her face radiant with surprise. She rose on her toes to kiss his cheek. I thought you weren't coming back until Friday. This is wonderful. Francis forced his mouth into a smile, forced his arms to wrap around her, while over her shoulder, he watched his mother quietly gather her cleaning supplies and slip from the room. Their eyes met for one more brief second. Beatrice's filled with a silent, desperate plea. Don't say anything. Not yet. I closed the Tokyo deal faster than expected, Francis managed, his voice sounding strange in his own ears. Thought I'd surprise you. Well, you certainly did. I'm thrilled. Camille took his hand, leading him toward the kitchen. You must be exhausted. Let me make you something to eat. I just need to finish giving instructions to the cleaning service, and then... Cleaning service? The words came out sharper than Francis intended. Camille's smile didn't falter. Yes, I hired them last month. The house is so large, I couldn't keep up with everything alone. They're very thorough. The woman you saw, she's... I'm actually really jet-lagged, Francis interrupted, pulling his hand free. I think I'll just grab a shower and lie down for a bit. Of course. I'll bring you some tea in a little while. Francis climbed the stairs to their bedroom, his legs moving on autopilot. His mind was screaming. He closed the door, pulled out his phone with shaking hands, and checked the home security app. The staff quarters. Above the garage. His mother had to be there. Francis waited. He unpacked. He showered. He lay on the bed staring at the ceiling while Camille bustled downstairs, her voice occasionally drifting up. Cheerful phone calls about dinner reservations, wedding vendor meetings. At 7 o'clock, Camille knocked on the bedroom door. Darling, I'm heading to Pilates. Will you be all right? Yeah. Still tired. You go ahead. The moment her Mercedes pulled out of the driveway, Francis was moving. He took the back stairs, crossed the yard in the fading daylight, and climbed the external staircase to the staff quarters. He knocked softly. Mom? It's me. The door opened. Beatrice stood there in casual clothes now, jeans and a sweater, but her face looked 10 years older than the last time he'd seen her 8 months ago. Francis, you weren't supposed to come home yet, she whispered. You weren't supposed to see. What the hell is going on? Why are you working as a maid in my house? Beatrice's composure crumbled. She sank onto the small sofa, her hands covering her face. I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping you. I thought. Francis pulled out his phone and opened the voice recorder. Mom, I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning. And I need to record it. What Beatrice told him over the next hour made Francis's blood run cold. The lunch where Camille had shown her fabricated financial documents. The doctor's appointment where her normal age-related memory changes had been painted as serious cognitive decline. The story that Francis was drowning in debt, personally liable for millions, too proud to tell anyone. She said you'd deny it if I asked, Beatrice said, tears streaming down her face. She said men like you protect people by hiding the truth until you can fix it. So I sold everything, Francis. The townhouse, my investments, everything I had. $3 million. I gave it all to Camille to protect you. And the maid uniform? She said you were so ashamed of the financial troubles that seeing me would make it worse. That I should stay here temporarily, help with household tasks, keep a low profile until you were back on your feet. She said once you were successful again, we'd tell you the truth together, and her voice broke. I was so confused, Francis. The doctor said my memory was failing. I couldn't trust my own judgment. And I was so scared of losing you, of making things worse. Francis's hands were shaking as he stopped the recording. Mom, listen to me very carefully. There is no debt. Secure Vault is thriving. I'm not in any financial trouble. And your memory diagnosis. I'm going to bet everything I own that it was exaggerated or fabricated entirely. Beatrice stared at him. But the documents were fake. Mom, Camille has been lying to you. She's stolen your money, manipulated you, made you doubt your own mind. Francis stood, pacing the small room, his mind racing. I need to make some calls. Don't tell her we talked. Don't let on that anything's changed. Can you do that? Francis, what are you going to do? I'm going to get your money back. And I'm going to make sure she pays for what she's done. He paused at the door. How long have you been living like this? 5 months, Beatrice whispered. 5 months. While he'd been in Tokyo celebrating deals and building his empire, his mother had been scrubbing floors in his house, believing she was saving him from ruin. Back in his home office, Francis made 2 phone calls. The first was to Michael Chun, his attorney. The second was to Sarah Rodriguez, a private investigator he'd used for corporate due diligence. I need everything on someone named Camille Laurent, Francis said quietly. Real background, financial records, past relationships, everything. And I need it fast. How quickly can you move? For you? I'll have preliminary findings by morning, Sarah replied. Make it happen. At midnight, Francis climbed into bed beside Camille. She was already asleep, her face peaceful in the moonlight streaming through the windows. Beautiful. Elegant. A perfect mask over something rotten. Francis lay there, staring at the ceiling, while the woman who destroyed his mother slept peacefully 18 inches away. His phone buzzed silently on the nightstand. Sarah's first text. Found offshore accounts in Cayman Islands. Multiple transfers from accounts linked to your mother. Still digging. Francis closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he'd have to wake up and pretend everything was normal. He'd have to kiss this woman good morning, discuss wedding plans, act like his world hadn't just detonated. But tonight, lying in the dark, Francis made a promise to himself and to his mother. Camille thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought she was clever, that Francis was too proud or too blind to see what was happening in his own home. She had no idea what was coming. What would you do in Francis's position? Confront immediately or wait to gather evidence? Drop your answer below. Francis sat in a conference room at his attorney's office in downtown San Francisco at 6:30 the next morning, 3 hours before Camille would wake up. Michael Chun had assembled a team overnight. Himself, private investigator Sarah Rodriguez, and a woman Francis had never met. This is Rebecca Walsh, Michael said. Forensic accountant. Best in the Bay Area. I briefed her on your situation. Rebecca opened her laptop, her expression grim. Mr. Malvoy, I've been reviewing the financial trail since 3 a.m. Your mother's accounts show systematic liquidation over a 4-month period. Total transfers, $3,200,000. Francis's jaw clenched. Where did it go? That's where it gets interesting. Rebecca pulled up a flowchart on the screen. The money went through 3 intermediary accounts before landing in offshore holdings in the Cayman Islands. The beneficial owner is listed as a shell corporation called Laurent Holdings. Laurent, her last name. Except Camille Laurent doesn't appear to be her real name, Sarah interjected, sliding a folder across the table. I've been digging into her background. The woman you know as Camille Laurent has had at least 3 previous identities. Camille Beaumont in Chicago, 5 years ago. Before that, Catherine Moreau in Boston. And before that, Celeste Du Bois in Miami. Francis opened the folder. Inside were newspaper clippings, legal documents, and photographs. The same woman, his fiancée, but with different names, different hair colors, different lives. Each time, she targeted wealthy men, Sarah continued. Each relationship lasted between 6 months and a year. Each man lost significant assets. And here's the pattern. She always befriended or manipulated a family member first. In Boston, it was the target's elderly father. In Miami, his younger sister. Francis felt sick. And no one prosecuted? She's careful. In each case, the money was transferred voluntarily. The victims were embarrassed, didn't want the publicity, or by the time they realized what happened, she'd already disappeared. Sarah pulled out another document. But there's more. 2 days ago, I caught this. She pulled up a photo on her phone. Camille having coffee at Red Rock in Mountain View with a man Francis recognized immediately. Marcus Chun, Francis said, his voice flat. My business rival. More than coffee, Sarah said. I've been surveilling her phone activity with a warrant Michael expedited. She's been calling this number multiple times per day. She played a recording. Camille's voice, speaking French. The timeline is set. After the party, we'll execute the final transfers. Il Sarah ruin. He'll be ruined. A male voice responded, also in French. And the mother? She's not a problem anymore. I've handled it. She doubts everything she knows. Francis stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Below, San Francisco was waking up, commuters heading to work, oblivious to the fact that his entire life was a carefully constructed lie. There's something else, Michael said quietly. Yesterday morning, Camille filed a prenuptial agreement with the county clerk. It's dated 3 months ago and bears your signature. I never signed a prenup. I know. It's forged. But it's convincing. If you tried to contest it, it would take months to prove the signature was falsified. And the terms, Michael slid the document across. Give her 50% of Secure Vault immediately upon separation, contested, or otherwise. Francis stared at the forged signature. It looked exactly like his own. How long have I been engaged to a ghost? He asked. That evening, Francis returned home, his face carefully neutral. Camille was in the kitchen, preparing what looked like an elaborate dinner. There you are, she said brightly. I was worried. You were gone so early. Just dealing with some Tokyo follow-up. Francis lied smoothly. Time zones, you know. After dinner, after Camille went to bed, Francis slipped into his home office and accessed the security system. Michael's tech specialist had given him instructions for accessing the backup server, the one that archived everything before it could be deleted. Francis pulled up footage from the past 5 months. What he saw made his stomach turn. Camille, speaking to Beatrice with cold dismissiveness when she thought no one was watching. Camille, going through Francis's private files when he was supposedly asleep. Camille, on the phone in Francis's office, speaking in rapid French to someone about extraction timeline and final transfer. One recording was particularly chilling. Beatrice, 2 weeks ago, approaching Camille with documents in her trembling hands. I found these in your office, Beatrice said in the footage. These bank statements, they show my money being transferred to overseas accounts. Camille, what's going on? Camille's expression had been patient, almost pitying. Oh, Beatrice, we talked about this with Dr. Harrison, remember? The memory issues. You're seeing connections that aren't there. These are my personal accounts, my family money. You're confused, sweetheart. But the account numbers. Look at me. Camille had taken Beatrice's hands. This is exactly what the doctor warned us about. False patterns, confusion. You're not thinking clearly. Why don't you lie down? I'll make you some tea. Beatrice had looked so lost, so uncertain. Maybe you're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's okay. It's not your fault. It's the condition. Francis watched his mother hand over the documents and shuffle away, defeated. Camille had waited until Beatrice was gone, then smiled at her phone and made a call. She found bank statements. Camille had said in French. But I've handled it. She thinks it's her memory failing. We're clear. Francis closed the laptop, his hands shaking. This wasn't just fraud. It was systematic psychological manipulation. Camille had been gaslighting his mother for months, making her doubt reality itself. His phone buzzed. Sarah Rodriguez. Francis, I just found something. The engagement party. It's not just a party. Camille's been coordinating with Marcus Chun to announce a surprise partnership between SecureVault and Chin's company. She's forged documents that make it look like you authorized it. If that announcement goes public, your board will think you've lost your mind, and your investors will. Will what? Will trigger the removal clauses in your Series C agreements. Francis, she's not just stealing your money. She's trying to take your company. Francis sat in the dark of his office, the pieces finally clicking into place. The engagement party in 48 hours wasn't a celebration. It was an execution. Camille would make her announcements, trigger the corporate chaos, and by the time Francis understood what was happening, she'd be gone with his mother's money, his company in shambles, and a forged prenup making him liable for everything. There's one more thing, Sarah said. That forged prenup? It was filed yesterday morning. Almost like she knew you were coming home early. Francis felt ice in his veins. Someone tipped her off. That's what I'm thinking. Francis, be careful. I don't think you know everyone who's working against you. Francis ended the call and sat in the darkness, listening to Camille's soft breathing from the bedroom upstairs. In 48 hours, 200 guests would arrive at his home for what they thought was an engagement party. Camille thought she'd planned the perfect trap, but she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated how far Francis would go to protect his mother. How would you handle discovering someone you love has been living a complete lie? Tell us in the comments. The next morning, Francis found his mother in the staff quarters, sitting at the small kitchenette table with a cup of coffee. She looked up when he entered, and for the first time in days, he saw something other than defeat in her eyes. I need to show you something, Beatrice said quietly. She reached under the sofa cushion and pulled out a disposable camera, the old-fashioned kind with actual film. I've been taking pictures. Francis sat down across from her. Pictures of what? Documents. Bank statements, transfer records, emails I found in Camille's office when she thought I was cleaning. Beatrice's hands shook slightly as she held the camera. I know she's been making me doubt myself, making me think I'm confused. But I'm not stupid, Francis. I knew something was wrong. So 3 weeks ago, I bought this camera at CVS and started documenting everything. Francis felt a surge of hope. Where are the other cameras? The developed photos? I've been taking them to a storage unit on El Camino Real. Unit 247. I have 6 cameras worth of photos there. Every document I could find, every piece of evidence. She pulled a key from her pocket. I didn't tell you earlier because Camille convinced me it was all in my head. But it's not. The proof is there. 20 minutes later, Francis and Sarah Rodriguez pulled into the Storage Mart facility on El Camino Real. The morning fog was just burning off, casting everything in gray light. Unit 247, Francis said, checking the key Beatrice had given him. They walked through the rows of orange doors until they found it. Francis's hands were steady as he unlocked the padlock and rolled up the door. The unit was empty. Not just empty, cleaned. No boxes, no photos, no evidence. Just bare concrete floor and walls. No, Francis whispered. No, no, no. Sarah was already on her phone. I'm calling the facility manager. Someone cleared this out. 10 minutes later, they sat in the facility's cramped office while the manager, a heavy-set man named Dave, pulled up records on his computer. Unit 247, yeah? Someone came in 3 days ago with a key and authorization letter. Cleared everything out. Took about 20 minutes. Do you have security footage? Sarah asked. Dave pulled it up. Francis watched the grainy footage of a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses entering the facility, opening Unit 247 and loading boxes into a black BMW. Can you zoom in on the license plate? Francis asked. Dave did. Sarah took a photo with her phone and immediately started running it. 2 minutes later, she looked up from her phone, her face grim. The car is registered to Chin Holdings, Marcus Chin's company. Francis felt the walls closing in. How did he know about the storage unit? That's what I want to know, Sarah said. Your mother didn't tell anyone, right? She said she didn't. Then either someone followed her, or, Sarah paused, or there's surveillance we don't know about. Francis, has Camille had access to your phone? Francis thought back. The passcode he used. The times he'd left his phone charging in their bedroom. Yes, he admitted. Then she could have tracking software installed. If your mom texted you or called you from near that storage facility, Camille would know. They drove back to Palo Alto in silence. Without Beatrice's photographs, they had circumstantial evidence. Offshore accounts, forged signatures, security footage of Camille being dismissive. Strong, but not ironclad. Not enough to guarantee prosecution before the engagement party. Back at his office, Francis called Michael Chun. "We need to bring in the FBI," Francis said. "Financial Crimes Division. Now." "Francis, I agree. But you need to understand something. The moment we involve federal authorities, this becomes their investigation. They move on their timeline, not yours. And if they think there's a chance Camille will flee, they might want to wait, build a stronger case. We don't have time to wait. The engagement party is tomorrow night." "I know. I'm just telling you that involving the FBI means giving up control." Michael paused. "But yes, I'll make the call. I have a contact at the San Francisco field office. Agent Patricia Morrison. She specializes in financial fraud." That afternoon, Francis attended a video conference with his Tokyo team, acting like everything was normal. Discussing market expansion, celebrating the successful deal closure, planning the next quarter strategy. Through the open office door, he could see Camille in the kitchen, arranging flowers for the engagement party. She looked up, caught his eye, and smiled. After the call ended, she appeared in his doorway with a glass of iced tea. "You look stressed," she said, setting the glass on his desk. "Everything okay with the Tokyo team?" "Fine. Just the usual complications. You know, you've been distracted since you got home. Is something bothering you?" Her voice was casual, but her eyes were sharp. "You've barely touched me in 2 days." "Just jet lag," Francis said, accepting the tea. Still adjusting to the time change. "Right. Jet lag." Camille sat on the edge of his desk. "Francis, are we okay? You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you?" "Of course. We're fine." "Good. Because tomorrow is such an important night. All your investors will be here, your board members, the tech journalists. I want everything to be perfect." She leaned forward, her hand on his. "I want us to be perfect." Francis forced himself to smile, to squeeze her hand. "We will be." After she left, Francis stared at the iced tea she'd brought him. Was he being paranoid, or was there something off about the way she'd looked at him? The way she'd emphasized, "You'd tell me if something was wrong?" His phone buzzed. "Sarah Rodriguez." "Francis, we have a problem. I've been reviewing your security footage from last night. There's a gap, 40 minutes around 2 a.m., where the recording just stops." "What? That's not possible. The system has backup power. Someone manually disabled it." "Francis, I think Camille knows you've been reviewing the footage. She's covering her tracks." That evening, as Francis and Camille ate dinner at the dining room table, catered from Evia, the restaurant where Francis had celebrated his Series C funding 8 months ago, Camille was different. More questions. More probing. "I ran into Jennifer today," Camille said, referring to Francis's cousin. "She mentioned she hadn't heard from you in weeks. Said it was unusual since you two usually text constantly." Francis had deliberately avoided contacting family. He hadn't wanted to explain anything until he understood the full situation. "I've been busy." She also asked about your mother. Said she hasn't seen Beatrice around in months. "I told her Beatrice was traveling." Camille sipped her wine. "That was the right thing to say, wasn't it?" "Sure." "Francis." Camille set down her glass. "Look at me." He did. Her expression was unreadable. "If something's wrong, you can tell me. You know that, right? We're partners. We're supposed to face things together." The irony was so thick Francis nearly laughed. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand. "I know, and I love you for that." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I love you too. Tomorrow is going to be wonderful. I promise." After Camille went to bed, Francis stood at the window of his office, staring out at the lights of Palo Alto. His phone showed a text from Michael Chun. "FBI agent Morrison will be at the party tomorrow. Plain clothes. We'll wire you up beforehand. Try to get Camille talking about the finances, the transfers, anything incriminating. But Francis, she's smart. If she suspects you're recording, this whole thing falls apart." Francis knew Camille was testing him. He could feel it in every word, every glance. She suspected something had changed. The question was, how much did she know? And if this story resonates with you, subscribe and join our community. We're sharing these stories to remind you that truth matters, And we're building something real here with people who care about authentic storytelling, where one click helps us keep going. Thank you. The morning of the engagement party, Francis met FBI agent Patricia Morrison in a coffee shop in Mountain View, far from anyone who might recognize him. She was in her mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every con in the book. Mr. Malvoy, I've reviewed the evidence your attorney provided, she said, keeping her voice low. What you're describing is sophisticated financial fraud with potential ties to organized crime. But I need to be clear, building a prosecutable case takes time. Minimum 48 hours, probably longer. The engagement party is tonight, Francis said. She's planning something. I know it. Then we'll have someone there. Plain clothes. And we'll wire you up. Try to get her talking about the money, the transfers, anything that confirms intent to defraud. But Mr. Malvoy, Patricia leaned forward. Don't be a hero. If she realizes you're onto her, she could disappear. Or worse. Worse. People who run cons at this level don't work alone. And they don't like loose ends. That afternoon, Francis stood in Tamarine Restaurant in Palo Alto for the engagement party rehearsal dinner. 40 guests, close friends, family, key business associates. The room glowed with soft lighting. Vietnamese fusion dishes were being prepared in the open kitchen, and champagne flowed freely. Camille was radiant in a cream silk dress, working the room like she'd been born to it. Francis watched her laugh with his investors, charm his board members, play the perfect bride-to-be. Then he saw his mother. Beatrice emerged from the kitchen in the same dove-gray uniform, carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Her eyes met Francis's for a brief second, apologetic, humiliated, before she looked away and began serving guests. Francis's hands clenched into fists. His own mother, serving champagne to people who'd celebrated with her as an equal just months ago. And none of them recognized her. To them, she was just the help. Invisible. Francis. Camille appeared at his elbow, her smile dazzling. Come meet someone. This is Marcus Chun. He's been such a help with some of the wedding planning logistics. Francis turned to face the man who'd stolen his mother's evidence from the storage unit. Marcus Chun extended his hand, his expression friendly and open. Francis Malvoy, I've heard so much about you. Congratulations on the Tokyo deal. Francis shook his hand, forcing his grip to remain neutral. Thanks. I appreciate you helping Camille. Anything for friends, Marcus said smoothly. Actually, I'm hoping we can talk business sometime. I think our companies could benefit from collaboration. I'm sure we could arrange that, Francis said, his voice even. After the wedding, of course. As Marcus moved away, Francis felt Camille's hand on his arm. Isn't he wonderful? So generous with his time. Oh, there's your cousin Jennifer. We should say hello. But Jennifer got to them first, pulling Francis aside near the bar while Camille was distracted by the wedding planner. Francis, can we talk? Jennifer whispered urgently. Privately. They stepped onto the restaurant's outdoor patio. Jennifer looked worried. Who's the woman in the gray uniform? She asked. Francis's stomach dropped. What do you mean? The one serving champagne. Francis, she looks exactly like Aunt Beatrice. I mean, I know it can't be her, but the resemblance is. It's not her, Francis said quickly. Just coincidence. Are you sure? Because I tried to talk to her, and she practically ran away. And you've been acting strange since you got back from Tokyo. What's going on? Nothing. I'm just stressed with the party in. Francis, I've known you your whole life. Something's wrong. Where's Aunt Beatrice? I've called her 10 times in the past month. She's not answering. She's traveling. Europe. I'll have her call you when she gets back. Jennifer studied his face. You're lying to me. Before Francis could respond, Camille appeared in the doorway. There you are? Francis, we need you for a toast. That night, after the rehearsal dinner ended and guests departed, Francis sat in his home office with Michael Chun and Rebecca Walsh, reviewing documents on his laptop. The fraudulent business obligations Camille had created were even worse than they'd initially thought. She set up contracts that make it look like you've committed Secure Vault to joint ventures with 3 different companies, Rebecca explained, pointing at the screen. All require substantial capital investments. All will be announced tomorrow at the party. And all will trigger your investors' removal clauses because these ventures directly violate your Series C agreement terms. How is this even possible? Forged signatures. Falsified board approvals. She's been building this for months, Francis. The moment these announcements go public, your board will have grounds to remove you as CEO, Michael added. And with the forged prenup, she'd be entitled to half the company value. She's not just stealing your mother's money. She's staging a corporate coup. At 11 p.m., after his team left, Francis found Camille in their bedroom, sitting on the bed with a small wrapped box. "I have a surprise for you," she said, patting the space beside her. "An early wedding gift." Francis sat down, accepting the box. Inside was a bank card and a document. "It's a joint offshore account," Camille explained, her eyes bright. "Cayman Islands. I set it up for us. A place where we can keep funds private, away from business complications and public scrutiny. Every successful couple needs financial privacy, Francis. I put in $50,000 to start. I was hoping you'd match it. Show that you trust me, that we're really partners." Francis stared at the card. This was it. The test. If he put money into this account, she'd know he was still in the dark, still trusting. If he refused, she'd know he suspected something. "That's really thoughtful," Francis said slowly. "But I'm not sure I'm comfortable with offshore accounts. The optics, especially with the business." "Francis, it's perfectly legal. Lots of executives do this. It's just prudent financial planning." She moved closer, her hand on his chest. "Don't you trust me?" "Of course I do." "Then show me. 50,000. Tomorrow morning. Before the party. It's symbolic, Francis. It shows we're united. Partners in everything." Francis looked at her face. Beautiful, earnest, convincing. Everything about her was a performance. And she was testing him, pushing to see if he'd take the bait. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll transfer it in the morning." Camille kissed him, her smile victorious. "Thank you, darling. This means everything to me." After she fell asleep, Francis lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The joint account was bait, a way to pull even more money before she disappeared. And she'd framed it as trust, as partnership, as love. He texted Michael, "Don't transfer anything to offshore account. It's a trap." The response came immediately. "Understood. Patricia Morrison will have agents positioned at party tomorrow. Stay calm. Don't let on that you know." Francis set his phone down and listened to Camille's peaceful breathing beside him. In less than 24 hours, 200 guests would arrive at his home. Camille thought she'd orchestrated the perfect exit. But Francis was done playing defense. Tomorrow night, at the engagement party, he'd spring his own trap. Have you ever had to pretend everything was fine when your world was falling apart? How did you handle it? Share below. The morning of the engagement party, Francis woke at 5 a.m. to find Camille's side of the bed empty. He heard sounds from his home office downstairs, the soft click of keyboard keys, the hum of his computer. Francis moved silently down the hallway, stopping just outside the office door. Through the gap, he could see Camille at his desk, a USB drive plugged into his computer, files transferring across the screen. SecureVault's proprietary encryption algorithms. The technology that had made his company worth hundreds of millions. She was copying everything. Francis pulled out his phone and took a photo through the doorway, capturing Camille's reflection in the monitor, the USB drive, the file transfer progress bar showing 87% complete. Then he quietly went back upstairs, climbed into bed, and waited. 20 minutes later, Camille slid back under the covers, her breathing soon settling into the rhythm of sleep. Or pretend sleep. Francis couldn't tell anymore what was real with her. At 8 a.m., Francis met FBI agent Patricia Morrison in a parking garage in downtown Palo Alto. She handed him a small device, a recording wire that would transmit everything to agents positioned around his property. "It's voice-activated," Patricia explained, showing him how to attach it under his shirt. "Try to get her to discuss the offshore accounts, the transfers from your mother, anything that establishes criminal intent. But Mr. Malvoy, stay safe. If anything feels wrong, give us the signal we discussed." "The signal is me saying, 'I need some air,'" Francis confirmed. "Right. We'll move in immediately. We'll have 8 agents at the party in plain clothes. Tech investors, catering staff, event crew. You won't be alone." Back at the mansion, the transformation was underway. Event staff filled the house and grounds, setting up white chairs on the lawn, stringing lights through the trees, arranging hundreds of white roses. A string quartet tuned their instruments near the pool. Cases of Domaine Chandon champagne were being chilled. Francis found his mother in the kitchen, already in her gray uniform. "Mom, You don't have to do this, he said quietly. You can stay in the staff quarters. I'll tell Camille you're not feeling well. Beatrice shook her head. No, I want to be there. I want to see her face when this all falls apart. Her voice was stronger than it had been in days. I'm done being her victim, Francis. At 3 p.m., Camille emerged from their bedroom in a flowing white dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. She looked like a bride already, radiant and perfect. How do I look? She asked, spinning for Francis. Beautiful, he said truthfully. Absolutely beautiful. She kissed his cheek. Tonight is going to be perfect. I promise. At 4:30, as Francis was straightening his tie in the bathroom, he heard Camille's voice through the door. She was on the phone, speaking French again. Oui, demain matin. Tout sera transfer. Yes, tomorrow morning. Everything will be transferred. A pause. Il-nese dit de rien. C'est parfait. He suspects nothing. It's perfect. Another pause. Non, la mère n'est pas un problème. Elle est brisée. No, the mother isn't a problem. She's broken. Francis gripped the edge of the sink, his knuckles white. Tomorrow morning. She was planning to execute the final transfers tomorrow, probably while Francis was still reeling from whatever she had planned for tonight. At 6 p.m., guests began arriving. Francis stood at the entrance to the estate, Camille at his side, greeting everyone with smiles and handshakes. Tech journalists from TechCrunch and Wired, board members from SecureVault, venture capitalists who'd funded his Series C, his cousin Jennifer, still looking concerned, friends from Stanford and MIT. 200 people, all here to celebrate an engagement built on lies. The California sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. The string quartet played something classical and romantic. Waitstaff, including Beatrice, moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Francis watched his mother serve drinks to his CFO Jordan Bennett, who didn't recognize her. Watched her refill glasses for investors who'd once sought her consulting advice. She was invisible to them all, just part of the background, the help. Marcus Chun arrived fashionably late, immediately finding Camille and kissing both her cheeks like they were old friends. Which, Francis now understood, they were. Partners in a criminal enterprise. Francis. Marcus approached with an extended hand. Beautiful evening. Beautiful home. You're a lucky man. I am, Francis agreed, shaking his hand while the recording device under his shirt captured every word. At 7:30, Camille took the microphone near the pool. The crowd quieted, 200 faces turning toward her expectantly. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Camille began, her voice warm and genuine sounding. Francis and I are so grateful to be surrounded by the people we love most. This man, she gestured toward Francis, has given me everything I ever dreamed of. And tonight, I want to give him something in return. Francis's phone vibrated in his pocket. Once, twice, 3 times. Urgent. He pulled it out discreetly while Camille continued speaking. A text from an unknown number. She knows you know. She moved up the timeline. Check your business accounts now. Francis's heart stopped. He opened his banking app with trembling fingers, pulling up SecureVault's corporate accounts. Transfers in progress. 7 figures. 8 figures. Money moving from SecureVault's operating accounts to offshore holdings, executing in real time. She was draining the company right now, while giving a toast. While 200 people watched, Francis looked up. Camille was still speaking, her face radiant, but her eyes found his across the crowd. And she smiled. Not the warm smile she'd been giving guests. A different smile. Cold. Victorious. She knew he was watching the accounts drain. She wanted him to know. This was part of the show. And so, Camille continued. I have a surprise announcement. Francis and I, along with our dear friend Marcus Chun, have been working on an exciting new venture. A merger between SecureVault and Chun Holdings that will revolutionize. Wait, Francis interrupted, his voice cutting through the crowd. What merger? Camille's smile never wavered. Darling, we discussed this. The partnership we've been planning. The documents are all prepared. You signed them last month. I never signed anything. The crowd murmured. Francis saw his board members exchanging worried glances. Investors pulling out their phones. Tech journalists suddenly looking very interested. Francis, you're confusing people, Camille said gently, her tone suggesting he was having some kind of episode. Maybe we should discuss this privately. No, we'll discuss it right here. Francis pulled out his phone, holding up the screen showing the unauthorized transfers. While you've been giving this toast, someone's been draining Secure Vault's accounts. $7 million and counting. Does anyone want to guess where it's going? The crowd was silent now. Confused. Concerned. Camille's expression shifted. Just for a second, the mask slipped, and Francis saw calculation flash across her face. Then she recovered. Francis, what are you talking about? You're not making sense. Are you feeling all right? I'm feeling fine. But I'm wondering why you have access to accounts you shouldn't. And why Marcus Chun has been involved in. Francis's words cut off as every light in the house went dark. The string quartet stopped. The crowd gasped. For 3 seconds, everything was pitch black. When the lights came back on, Camille was gone. If you could send one message to Francis right now, what would you tell him? Comment below. The 3 seconds of darkness felt like an eternity. Francis heard the crowd's confused murmurs, the rustle of movement, someone's glass shattering on stone. When the lights blazed back on, the space where Camille had been standing was empty. The microphone lay on the ground, feedback screeching before someone cut the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, just a minor electrical issue, the event coordinator announced, trying to maintain calm. Please enjoy the champagne while we... But Francis was already moving, pushing through the confused crowd toward the house. FBI agent Patricia Morrison materialized at his elbow, dressed as a caterer. She's running. Patricia said urgently into her concealed radio. All units, subject is mobile. Repeat, subject is mobile. Francis burst through the French doors into his home office. The computer was still on, files open on the screen, his personal banking interface showing transfer after transfer executing in rapid succession. She's still draining the accounts, Francis said, his voice tight. His phone buzzed. Another alert. Another $1 million gone. Patricia was already on her phone. We need to freeze these accounts now. Get me. Francis. He spun around. Camille stood in the doorway, her white dress pristine, 2 glasses of wine in her hands. Her expression was concerned, almost confused. Darling, what's going on? You ran off in the middle of the party. Everyone's worried about you. She extended one of the wine glasses toward him. Here, drink this. You look like you're about to have a panic attack. Francis stared at her. How was she here? He'd watched her disappear when the lights went out, and yet here she was, perfectly composed, acting like nothing had happened. Where did you go? Francis asked. Go? I've been trying to find you. The power went out, and when it came back on, you were gone. Camille set the wine glasses on his desk, moving closer. Francis, are you feeling all right? That speech you gave out there, about accounts being drained. Don't, Francis said quietly. Don't pretend anymore. Camille's expression shifted. Just slightly. The concern melting into something cooler. Pretend what, darling? Francis pulled out his phone, turning the screen toward her. Bank transfers, still executing. While you were giving your toast, someone started draining Secure Vault's accounts. 7 million so far. Want to explain that? That's impossible. Francis, you're not making sense. Stop lying. Francis's voice rose. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about Marcus Chun. I know what you did to my mother. The fake financial crisis, the exaggerated diagnosis, the $3 million you stole from her. For 3 long seconds, Camille said nothing. Then her face changed. The mask didn't just slip, it fell away completely. What remained was something cold and calculating. Well, she said softly, I suppose we're done pretending then. Behind Camille, Patricia Morrison stepped into the doorway, her hand moving toward the weapon concealed under her catering uniform. 2 more agents appeared in the hallway. Camille didn't even look at them. Her eyes stayed locked on Francis. You know what's funny? Camille said, her voice conversational. I almost felt bad about you. The others were easy, greedy, careless, stupid. But you, Francis, you actually loved your mother. That made it harder. More personal. FBI, Patricia announced. Ms. Laurent, you need to. Oh, please. Camille finally turned, giving Patricia an amused look. You think I didn't know you were here? I've known for 2 days. Why do you think I moved up the timeline? Francis felt ice in his veins. You knew I was onto you. Of course I knew. You're brilliant with code, Francis, but terrible at subterfuge. The night you came home early, the way you looked at your mother, I saw it. The recognition, the shock, and I knew my time was up. Camille picked up one of the wine glasses, taking a sip. So I accelerated everything. The question was whether I could execute the final transfers before you made your move. The transfers are evidence, Patricia said. Every dollar you've moved is traceable. You're not walking away from this. Are not? Camille smiled. Because here's what you don't know. The computer executing those transfers? It's not in this house. It's not even in this state. And the offshore accounts? They're not in my name. They're in his. She pointed at Francis. That's impossible. Is it? Francis, darling, who gave me access to your computer? Your passwords? Your biometric data? Camille's voice was mocking now. Every transfer tonight is coming from your IP address, using your credentials, authorized by your fingerprint scans. Scans I collected over 6 months of you touching wine glasses, door handles, your phone. Francis felt the ground tilting beneath him. You're framing me. I'm protecting myself. By the time your FBI agents trace those accounts, they'll find a paper trail showing you've been embezzling from your own company for months. Forged emails, fabricated meetings, a meticulous record of your financial crimes. Camille set down the wine glass. I learned a long time ago, the best defense is making someone else the criminal. Patricia moved forward. Ms. Laurent, you're under arrest for. On what charge? Theft. The money went to accounts in his name. Fraud. I have documentation showing he authorized everything. Elder abuse. Beatrice signed those property transfers voluntarily. You'll find her signatures on every document, all properly notarized. We have recordings, Francis said desperately. Security footage of you. Footage that mysteriously disappeared from your security system? Footage I could easily argue you deleted yourself to cover your tracks. Camille's smile was victorious. Francis, I've been building your guilt for 6 months. Every piece of evidence points to you. And tomorrow morning, when tech journalists start digging into tonight's chaos, they're going to find a brilliant CEO who cracked under pressure, embezzled millions, and tried to blame his innocent fiancée. Patricia's radio crackled. Agent Morrison, we've got a problem. Bank records show transfers originated from inside the house, from Malvoy's personal computer and IP address. And we've got someone accessing the system right now. That's impossible, Francis said. I'm standing right here. Patricia's expression changed. Someone's in your office. Upstairs. They ran. Francis took the stairs 3 at a time, Patricia and 2 agents behind him. The upstairs office door was open, lights on. Marcus Chin sat at Francis's computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. FBI. Hands up. Step away from the computer. Marcus slowly raised his hands, turning to face them with a calm smile. Officers. I'm so glad you're here. Francis called me 20 minutes ago, frantic, saying someone was hacking his accounts. I came as quickly as I could to help stop. Liar. Francis lunged forward, but Patricia grabbed his arm. Mr. Malvoy, don't. Francis's phone buzzed. His attorney, Michael Chun, calling. Francis answered with shaking hands. Francis, we have a massive problem. Michael's voice was panicked. Someone just filed an emergency petition with the SEC, claiming you've been conducting unauthorized financial transactions. Your board is being notified right now. And Francis, the petition includes signed affidavits from 3 witnesses saying you've been acting erratically for months. Who filed it? Someone named Camille Laurent. But Francis, Michael's voice dropped. Her legal counsel is my brother. Marcus Chun is representing her. He's been her attorney the entire time. Francis turned to stare at Marcus, who was now being handcuffed by FBI agents. The man's smile never wavered. Small world, isn't it? Marcus said. Brother against brother. Makes for a compelling story. Francis looked at Patricia. What happens now? Now. Patricia's face was grim. Now we sort through the biggest mess I've seen in 20 years. Because right now, Mr. Malvoy, half the evidence says you're the criminal. Would you protect the evidence or stop the theft immediately? What's the right choice here? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear from you. The mansion had descended into chaos. 200 confused guests milled around the property while FBI agents tried to maintain order. Tech journalists were already typing on their phones, breaking the story in real time. Francis could see the headlines forming. Tech CEO melts down at engagement party, or Secure Vault founder accused of embezzlement. Downstairs, Patricia Morrison was coordinating with her team, trying to trace the transfers while simultaneously building a case. But every piece of evidence seemed to point in 2 directions at once. Francis stood in his living room, watching through the windows as more vehicles arrived. Police cars, their lights painting the night in red and blue. Francis. He turned. His mother stood in the doorway, still wearing her gray uniform, but her posture had changed. She stood straighter, more confident. And in her hand, she held a small recording device. "Mom, I need to tell you something," Beatrice said. "I haven't been as helpless as Camille thought." Patricia Morrison appeared behind Beatrice. "Mrs. Malvoy has been working with us for 3 weeks." Francis stared. "What?" Beatrice stepped forward. "When I found those documents in Camille's office, the ones she convinced me were my memory confusion, I didn't believe her. Not completely. So I called the FBI. I told them everything, and Agent Morrison suggested I play along, keep documenting, keep gathering evidence." "The storage unit," Francis said. "The photographs were decoys," Patricia confirmed. "We knew Camille or Marcus would find them eventually. The real evidence, every photograph, every document. Mrs. Malvoy uploaded them to our secure servers before she ever put copies in that storage unit. We've had everything for 2 weeks." Francis felt hope flare in his chest. "So you have proof?" "Proof that Camille—" The front door burst open. More police, but these weren't FBI. Local Palo Alto police, led by a detective Francis didn't recognize. "Francis Malvoy," the detective said. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Financial fraud, embezzlement, unauthorized access to corporate funds." "What?" Patricia stepped forward, holding up her badge. "Detective, this is an FBI investigation. We have jurisdiction here. Not according to the SEC filing we received an hour ago. This is a local matter involving California-based corporations, and the FBI has been investigating this case for 3 weeks, Patricia argued. "You can't just—" While they argued, Francis saw movement near the French doors. Camille, slipping through the crowd of confused guests, heading toward the driveway where cars were parked. Francis started toward her, but someone grabbed his arm. Michael Chun, his attorney. Except Michael's expression was strange. Conflicted. "Francis, I need to tell you something," Michael said quietly. "Marcus Chun isn't just a business rival. He's my brother. My younger brother." Francis felt the world tilt. "You're working with him?" "No. God, no. But I didn't know." Michael's voice broke. "I didn't know he was involved in this until tonight. Francis, I swear, I've been trying to help you. But he's been getting information from me. About your legal strategy, your evidence, everything. I thought we were just discussing general business stuff. But he was. You've been feeding him everything we planned," Francis said, his voice hollow. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You have to believe me." Francis pushed past him, moving toward Camille. But then he heard it. A sound that stopped him cold. His mother, gasping, clutching her chest. "Mom!" Beatrice collapsed. Francis caught her before she hit the ground, lowering her gently to the floor. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. "Someone call 911. Francis shouted. "Already on it," Patricia said, phone to her ear. "We need an ambulance at—" "Mom, stay with me. Look at me." Francis held her hand, feeling how cold it was. "You're going to be okay." "Francis," Beatrice whispered. "The diagnosis. It wasn't all fake. Some of it was real. The doctor exaggerated it, but," she gasped. "The stress. I pushed too hard. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Don't you dare apologize." EMTs burst through the door, equipment in hand. They took over, checking Beatrice's vitals, preparing to transport her. Francis started to stand, to go with her, but Patricia grabbed his arm. "Mr. Malvoy, if you leave now, the local police will arrest you. We need you here to sort out jurisdiction, to give your statement." "That's my mother." "I know, and we'll make sure she's taken care of. But if you leave and they arrest you, everything we've built falls apart. Camille wins." Francis looked at his mother being loaded onto a stretcher, then at the chaos surrounding him. FBI agents arguing with local police, his attorney looking devastated, guests recording everything on their phones. "Francis Malvoy," the detective said again, "you need to come with us. Now." "He's not going anywhere," Patricia said firmly. "Not until we—" A phone rang. Camille's phone. Francis saw her standing near the driveway, 30 feet away, answering it. She looked directly at Francis as she spoke. "We. Plan B. Executes main tenant." "Yes. Plan B. Execute now." Then she smiled at Francis, that same cold, victorious smile, and got into a waiting car. A black BMW. The same one that had cleared out the storage unit. "Stop her!" Francis shouted. "She's leaving." FBI agents started running, but the BMW was already moving, tires screeching as it pulled onto the street. Patricia radioed for units to pursue, but Francis knew. Camille had planned for this. She had an exit strategy within her exit strategy. The ambulance pulled away with his mother inside. Francis stood frozen, watching the taillights disappear. "Mr. Malvoy," the detective said, more insistent now. "You're coming with us. Put your hands behind your back." "He's not under arrest," Patricia argued. "We have evidence that clears him." Evidence from his mother, who was living in his house, working as his employee. That's not exactly unbiased. She was working with us. While they argued, Francis's phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number that had warned him earlier. "Look outside." Front gate. Francis walked to the window. At the front gate, now being held open by someone Francis couldn't see clearly, Camille stood. The BMW was gone. She stood alone in the glow of streetlights, looking back at the mansion. Then she raised her phone to her ear, and Francis's phone rang. He answered. "Francis." Camille's voice was calm, almost gentle. "You should have taken the money and run when I gave you the chance. When I offered you that offshore account, that $50,000, that was your exit. Your chance to be complicit and walk away rich. But you had to be the hero. Camille, now everyone you love will pay for your pride. Your mother's in an ambulance. Your company's board will remove you by morning. Your attorney betrayed you. And the best part? Half the evidence says you're the criminal. Even if you prove I'm guilty, you'll spend years clearing your name." She paused. "But here's what you don't know yet, Francis. This isn't just about money. It never was. There are people who wanted secure vaults encryption technology. People who paid very well for me to destroy you and deliver your algorithms. And they don't like loose ends." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying watch your back. Because the real game is just beginning, and you have no idea who's playing." The line went dead. Francis turned back to the room. Police were moving toward him with handcuffs. FBI agents were still arguing jurisdiction. His attorney Michael stood against the wall, looking broken. And through the window, Francis watched Camille walk into the darkness and disappear. He had no idea how deep this conspiracy went. No idea who else had been turned against him. No idea who these people were that Camille mentioned. But as the police detective reached for his wrists, as sirens filled the night air, as his mother fought for her life in an ambulance somewhere in Palo Alto, Francis made a promise to himself. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. This story doesn't end here. If you need to know what happens next, if you need to see Francis fight back and discover who else betrayed him, drop part 2 in the comments right now. And please, hit that like button and subscribe. We can't continue these stories without your support. Your comment, your like, your subscription, they tell us you care about seeing justice served. Don't leave Francis and Beatrice hanging. Comment part 2 below.